Hi, long time no see. My name is Sam Krones. I'm a guitarist out of Orange County, California, and I've recently moved places. I've got a different setup. It's a very nice experience to be in a new place and feel like the creativity flowing again, you know? But in the hecticness of the move and with the holidays, I realized I hadn't come on here and made a video in a while, so I decided today would be the day I do it. So my band just released our debut album, New Life Will Grow. It's got like a bunch of math rock twinkly stuff in there. If you like that kind of stuff, go check it out. But we have one song on there that people have been really appreciating recently, which I'm very grateful for. And it has this really sick like riff in the intro. It's like a 9/4 sort of tapping thing. I figured I would take the time today to go through and do like a riff breakdown of sorts. So anybody who wants to play it can, you know, just kind of watch what I'm doing and figure out how to play it. That could be kind of fun. We've also got tabs for this and a bunch of our other songs off of that album up on my band's Patreon. So if you want to go check that out, there's a link down in the description somewhere. We've got just a bunch of cool tabs, playthroughs, behind the scenes stuff for the band. All of that's on there. Very fun stuff, so go check it out if you haven't already. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for being here. Let's just get straight into it, I guess. What? That's crazy. How did I get a guitar in my hand? What in the world? So we're here. I got the Strandberg out. This guitar is phenomenal. I love those Strandberg guys. Anyways, so this riff, just to start us off, this is what it sounds like. So it starts in this section. And then it moves to this section. That is the riff, or I guess the intro riff that I play in Sonata in C#. So to start us off, this riff in this song, I play it in this tuning. I'm gonna put it somewhere on the screen right now, but this tuning is essentially E major tuning dropped down to D flat or C# is what I call it, and I play it in almost every song off the record, but this is what it sounds like. Sounds slightly out of tune, so let me fix that. Ta-da! So this is what the in-tune version sounds like. Tuning is from bottom to top. It is C#, G#, C#, F, G#, and C#. So you just got like fifths and the third in there and whatever. I really like this tuning. I think the chord shapes are very easy for me to grasp. It's essentially just a bunch of power chords that I end up playing with and then throwing on some lead lines on top, and this is kind of why I like this tuning. I can go more in depth into this in another video, I suppose, but this one's my favorite for that reason. It's super easy access to like just these super wide open voicings that you can get. But to start us off, this riff that I was just playing, the beginning of it is like this kind of accented tapping section. And for this first part, we're playing it in eighth notes. So we're on the eighth note grid. So we're feeling it like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9. And that's kind of the feel of it. The accents fall like this. So let's break down these chords really quick. The left hand is kind of doing this like barring the lowest three strings thing. I'm doing this a lot. I bar the lowest three strings with my second finger here. I'll just bar across the top of them, so it should sound like this with just my second finger. And then I'll leave the rest of the strings open. And then this third string here, I typically throw on my third finger on top of that, so it sounds like this. So we've got the first two strings that are open now, and then the rest of them are being barred, essentially you know, how you bar a regular chord, except I've got it split up like this for a few different reasons, but mainly it's just like flexibility of these two fingers for any other chord shapes I might play in this tuning. So yeah, that's our first chord. And then our second chord is exactly the same shape, but you just drop it down a half step onto the 4th fret. Should sound like this. And then we move to our third chord, which is just 2 fingers. I'm playing first finger on the 2nd fret of the 5th string. And then I'm playing my 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the 3rd string. All together with the open strings included, which, mind you, we're kind of ignoring the 6th string for this chord. So we're muting that with our first finger, but the rest of this should sound like this. Getting rid of that dissonance there. And then we move on to second to last chord, I believe. It is this shape right here. Going back to barring the lowest 3 strings, so 4th, 5th, and 6th string with our 2nd finger. So it should sound like this on the 6th fret. And then we're throwing our first finger on to the 5th fret 3rd string. Now that with the open strings is gonna sound a little dissonant again, but it sounds like this. And then we just, essentially the last chord in this progression is same exact hand shape, except now instead of our root note being the 6th string, we're gonna just bump it up to the 5th string. And I'm removing the bar now on my 2nd finger, so I'm now just playing 2nd finger on the 5th string, and then my 4th string is now open. See that really nice dissonance. And then we've got our first finger on the 5th fret 3rd string, with the last 2 higher strings open. Pretty cool stuff. All right, so all together this chord progression, when we move through it just strumming slowly, should sound like this. Cool, you got the chords. Okay, so the next part of this kind of blends in a lot of the right hand action, because with this riff, obviously you've got tapping going on with this crazy like hammer-on pull-off stuff. You've also just got these like stacked fifths in your right hand. Now when I say fifths, I'm talking the interval here. So in this tuning, I think it's super fun to use these fifths like on top of each other and to hear this kind of as like a tapping melody in a lot of cases. So I'll create a lot of riffs that just have this like... because it just kind of works everywhere. So this riff also uses a lot of this technique. So for the beginning of this, we start by stacking fifths in our right hand. So we're gonna tap with our first finger and our second finger. We're gonna tap on the 9th fret, 2nd string, 2nd finger, and then 4th string with your first finger. So should sound like this. There's one part in the riff where we move up to the 12th fret here, but don't worry about that for now. Just nail this 9th fret thing. And then where it really gets tricky is the accents, like I was talking about earlier. So you've got the chords. I want you to try and just play through each of these chords just by tapping it, because we're gonna be hammering on with our left hand and then tapping with our right hand. We're kind of just going back and forth. Anything of the sorts, as long as you've got that motion going, that sort of back and forth feel, that's really all you need for now. That's also another reason why I use that barring thing with my left hand with my second finger, just because it ends up making that shape a lot easier to hammer on. Because I'm just hammering on 2 fingers instead of hammering on like a full 4. It just kind of works better that way. So once you've got that down, we're gonna kind of look at the rhythm. We're gonna break it down. So the rhythm is interesting because the whole thing is in 9/4. This intro part is on the 8th note grid, like we were talking about earlier. So in the beginning here, it sounds like this. It goes 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We switch from putting the downbeat, we just move it to the end. So it feels kind of like you're offsetting yourself every measure, which is kind of cool. I don't know, I like it. Now we're gonna move on to the second section of this where it sounds crazy and hectic, but actually it puts less of a load on your brain because of the way that we are splitting up the parts. On guitar, I like to do this thing typically where, you know, it sounds flashy, but it doesn't really feel flashy sometimes, where you have your left hand and your right hand are both tapping 16th notes, so it sounds fast. It's a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4, you know, it's going fast, but it's actually not that much stress on either hand because what I end up doing is splitting up the work between each hand. So left hand has 1E, right hand has and then we move back to our left hand, continue on the rest of the rhythm. So it's like this back and forth thing where we got left hand and then we got right hand. Left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand. We're essentially just going back and forth. I do the same thing in the Sprout riff. Super fast, sounds like this. That same sort of thing in there. That was all in 4, so that one might be a little easier to start with. This is the same idea, theoretically. So with this one, we're moving from the 8th note grid to now the 16th note grid. Again, let's break it down. So I'm gonna have you break this down into 2 phrases. In the chords, we're now not hammering on chord shapes, we're hammering on 2 notes now, okay? Taking a look at the chords first. You're gonna take those same positions that you were in, except we're just gonna play the root note and then the 3rd on top. So that sounds like this. Try and get this back and forth motion going in your left hand. If you can like put this to a click and speed it up or whatever, just try and get those muscles working. I'm doing this with my 2nd finger and with my 3rd finger. You can also do it with your 1st and your 2nd. But I do it with my 2nd and my 3rd after this 1st chord, which sounds like this. We're gonna move to the 4th fret. And then we're gonna move down to our 3rd chord, which is on the 2nd and the 3rd fret, on the 5th and the 3rd string. Try and get that hammer on back and forth. And then we're gonna move chords. Next chord is this one, 6th fret. And that same shape, remember we're just moving from the 6th string root note to the 5th string root note. And then we're moving back down here. So if I just played this only with my left hand, not considering rhythm right now. The reason this gets a little bit tricky is because you're moving from 2nd to 3rd to 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 1st to 2nd, 1st to 2nd. Then you're switching the order and you're going 2nd to 1st. And then 2nd to 1st. That's really where it gets tricky, but once you nail that, the rest of it should be pretty simple. So then we get into this tapping section up top, which kind of sounds like this when it's on its own. So that's the tapping part in the right hand, but the way that this kind of makes sense is we're splitting it into these 2 phrases. So the left hand phrase is this back and forth. And then the right hand phrase is this. Now watch what happens if we piece them together. So we do left hand, then right hand, then we pause on the right hand, and then we go left hand, then we go right hand. Kind of trading it back and forth, okay? So we're going left, and then we're going right, and then we're going left, and then we're going right, and then we're going left, then we're going right, and then we're going left, then we're going right. And that's the whole phrase, that's it. As you're just trading back and forth this lead line sort of thing until you finish the bar of 9/4, or you finish the phrase and it ends up being 9/4 because of where you've allocated the notes, which is how it was written. You know, I don't go and write something and I'm thinking, oh, I really want this to be in 9/4. You know, I'm sitting there and I'm playing it and all of a sudden it feels natural for me to do this, like, because of this hammer on and this pull off with the right hand, it makes it into 9/4 because I accidentally added an extra beat, but it was kind of cool in the long run, so I kept it that way. This is what the whole thing sounds like slowed down, if you want to check this out. So that would be the first chord. Now we move it to the second chord. Remember, we're doing the exact same shape, we're just not barring with our second finger here anymore, we're just playing root note. So we're going from 5th fret to 4th fret now. Same exact thing with your right hand. That's the fun part about this, is that your right hand during this section is not changing at all. It's only your left hand, so that's all you have to focus on. So we're doing... We're ending there, and then we're moving to the third chord, which sounds like this. And then we're moving to the 4th chord, which sounds like this. Now we're moving to the next chord, again slowed down. And this lead line is, with your right hand, we're going 7th fret to 8th fret on the 3rd string. And then we're going 7th fret to 9th fret on the 2nd string. And then 9th to 10th to 9th on the 2nd string. I'm doing that as a hammer on and a pull off, so 9, 10 hammer on, pull off with that second finger towards you, and then pull off that first finger to open, and then we're moving back down to the 7th to 9th fret. Keep in mind that when I'm tapping this, I'm not just floating around. Like, my thumb is acting as the anchor for me. And this is one thing that I think about a lot in two-handed tapping, is use that thumb. Don't just let it like float around, because then you're gonna have no idea where you are and you have no anchor. But it's the same way as like when you're playing with a pick down here, you're gonna want to anchor yourself with your wrist or with your pinky. Up here, I'm kind of anchoring myself with my thumb. I'm just kind of sliding my thumb around with the part, but it is essential to making sure you don't cramp up your hand, because I've had a few people tell me that that has happened to them before. And then with the left hand, just comes down to getting those hammer-ons clean. Kind of neat. Anyways, yep, thank you for checking this out. I hope this all helps. If you have videos of you playing, please send them my way. I'd love to see it. You can send them over DM on Instagram, somewhere on the screen there. Also, if you want a more in-depth like tutorial on how to play this, we've got tabs and like playthrough videos on our Patreon. Once again, Stereosity's Patreon, it's down below somewhere. All support is greatly appreciated. You can also, if you're feeling a little bit lost or you want more mentorship, I do one-on-one lessons. You can check that out anywhere down below as well, or just send me an email or something. Yeah, this is kind of a fun one to play, and I think it's a really good like introductory statement into like two-handed tapping, especially in open tunings, and I'd love to go more in depth about that. Let me know if you guys have any more like video ideas you have for me, if you want to learn how to play something, or if you want to learn how I write my riffs or anything of the sort. I would be happy to share. I've also got this tone. I've got a preset for this. If you want to, I'm essentially just making my tone in Archetype Plenty X. If you want this tone preset, it will also be in the Patreon. So go check that out if you haven't. One final thing I would like to mention, we're going on tour. If you're here and you don't know my band is called Stereosity. We play music kind of like the stuff that you just heard me play. And we're going on tour this March. I've got the dates also in the description. We're going on a headliner in March with Dear Cincinnati, and then in April we're joining Sweet Pill on their full US headline tour for their album release, which is super sick. And tickets are already selling out. I know Denver's already sold out, but if you want to grab tickets for any of those, do so now down below. Those shows are gonna be so much fun. Holy moly, my camera just died from heat exhaustion. I feel like a bad parent. Anyways, I just wanted to say thank you one more time. If you have any questions, hit me up. Links and stuff in the bio. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video. See y'all later.